So we got this situation with Ed Reed at Bethune-Cookman talking about he's picking up trash, talking about the facilities, etc. Um, and he's just kind of ragging on, Bethune-Cookman and HBCUs and what to expect, and what he's experienced there, which kind of goes back to, Deion Sanders and why he left and whatnot. You know, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Ed Reed hasn't experienced challenge in his life. He hasn't experienced these things, that may, from his childhood that may have been rough, etc. I'm not saying that, but when you go to an HBCU or going to an HBCU, HBCUs are doing a lot with a little, right? And when they play these larger programs, when they get the promotion, these premier games, or just the telecast or whatever it is, understand what it took for HBCU to get to that point. The resources, the finances are not always there, and there's so many different factors that go into an HBCU that make it not as effective. And there's a couple things. So he goes to Bethune-Cookman. He gets upset. I saw the video talking about, he's, blah, blah, this, that. He's the head coach. You can't, first of all, the head coach, you can't do that, Ed. Like, I always say this. You can't, like, hey, look, if you're in the hood, you're aware what's happening in the hood, right? So if you're in the black community, you're aware what's happening in the black community, and all this stuff isn't a surprise to you. What's happening coming from HBCU, coming from, got my right here from Norfolk State, like, you can't be surprised at what you're not surprised at what happens. You don't get mad, you don't get belligerent, right? You try to do what you can, especially with Ed Reed, with his stature, with his image and who he is, to pull things in and change the narrative. And HBCUs, yes, there is people who are not handling money right, but also too, we don't have these people who graduate from the school and that are making millions and donate millions of money back to the university. Now, a lot of HBCU prominent figures, noble figures do that, but the money's nowhere close to what these PWIs are getting. So Ed Reed has to understand it. Anybody who looked at Deion Sanders and said, "Oh, he left because of this reason," understand, like, HBCUs are not a quick fix. You're not just going to go into HBCUs and do a Chip and Joanne makeover within a year or a day. Like, going to a HBCU and changing the narrative, changing the perspective, changing the university and HBCUs as a whole takes a decade, right? What did Deion Sanders do for his legacy? Deion Sanders understand this. Deion Sanders is the most selfish person I've ever seen in the NFL. And his lifestyle has been polarized so much that we think he was this excellent player on the field. He was a good cornerback, far from the greatest, but he was a great athlete, right? And his theatrics made him be even put on a higher scale. But understand this, like, Deion Sanders forfeited a legacy of what he could have done for the black community, for his own legacy at Colorado, right? Hey, look, it's his decision. Go for it. No problem. No, I'm not gonna look. It's his decision. He got his kids to go from Jackson State to Colorado. You're in the Pac-12. You're in a big conference. You're playing football. Great. Congratulations. Now you're on. More power to you. But what Deion Sanders did for the HBCUs was good for the time, but it essentially hurts a lot of HBCUs, because when he left, what was the narrative? All the things that people who are already in the community know about HBCUs. Ed Reed going to Miami, he's coming back. Like I said, you're coming back to the hood. You're coming back to HBCUs, and you look at the lack of resources. You look at the lack of funding. You look at the it is playing football at HBCU. It was a blessing, because I learned so much about humility there. I learned so much about hard work there. I learned so much about having empathy for black people in the community. Because if you're not in the black community, there's no way. And if you let me play this. If you're not in the black community and understanding what's happening and having discernment and wisdom, then what's happening in the black community will be completely oblivious to you, right? Understanding what's happening in the black community and what's happening in the HBCUs and what's happening and how things operate there should not be this far-fetched idea that what they get you mad. And when it comes to HBCUs, just building up HBCUs in itself, yes, it's lack of funding, but resources, access, facilities, all these things, and the thing is, a lot of HBCUs are doing good. They're doing great, but it's not all HBCUs. They're dying, and it's not a quick fix that you come in, slap a patch on it, and leave. This is an investment. It's an investment that you will probably, Ed Reed, if he were to stay there and help Bethune-Cookman throughout the rest of his life, he will die and never ever see the benefits of what he did. But the foundation that he can lay for HBCUs could be monumental to helping HBCUs get back on the threshold of this predominant PWIs. But Ed Reed and what he's doing and how he and what he's saying, I understand. Like, look, I'm not going to judge, man. Ed Reed was my favorite player growing up. I played safety. I got his shoes. I mimicked him. I saw how he played. I studied him. This is back from middle school to high school. I played the position because he played the position. Ed Reed is one of my favorite players, and I know I'm not going to judge him off this one instance, but understand, Ed Reed, this is the situation at HBCUs. You can sit there, go to the Ravens, bring those people in, right? I'm sure there's other people, not just black people, but also white people that would love to help out HBCUs. Some of the best players came from HBCUs. But I always say this, no matter who you are, if anybody throws a dollar amount in front of most people, they'll forget who they are. And what happens typically is when black people get money, they forget who they are and they stop investing in the black community. If you ever think you're too good or too at a point where, like, hey, look, you've arrived, right? You're in a good financial state. You're living comfortably. You have the house, you have the car, you have all these things, and you're squared away, and you drip, drip whatever it is back to the black community. And you think you're in a good spot. That's the easiest thing to get you distracted from helping other people. And this is not just about black people in general. It's about, I hate to say it, a person, and so of course being a Christian, you're not set out to live a comfortable life, right? And that's the thing as Christians that keep people humble, right? As people who love God and relationship with God, it keeps you humble. My goal is not to live a comfortable life. My goal is not to seek peace. My goal is not to, live this life where my family has it great. My goal is not to live this life where I have it easy. My goal in life is to serve. And whatever God calls me to do, I pray every day that I attack it. And that's the goal in life, because it's easy to live comfortable. It's easy to have everything okay for your family. It's easy to do these things and forget what you're called to do. Just like in the black community, if you graduate from an HBCU and you say, hey, look, I'm only going to dabble back and do this, I'm not going to get back to, and then talk about HBCUs, hey, look, you're not helping the cause. But if you're in the HBCU community and you never been back, or you're not understanding, and you understand, or you never took the time to understand what's going on, then you never understand what goes on in HBCUs. The HBCU climate right now, yes, it's struggling, it's hurting, right, and there's no doubt about it. But this is not a quick fix, going to Bethune-Cookman, going to Jackson State. This is something that takes time. And if you want to build a legacy, not just for yourself, but if you, in helping HBCUs holistically, you'll build yourself a legacy that's stronger, that's deeper than just, hey, you won games. Because when that guy told Deion Sanders, coach told Deion Sanders he wasn't swag, Deion Sanders wasn't swag. That guy's been through the thick and thin. Deion Sanders hasn't. It was something that helped Deion Sanders, and that's it. So with Ed Reed, I'm not going to pass judgment on Ed Reed. Hey, look, he's always been a solid dude, loving the game. Deion's a different story, but I just think that, over time, you have to be in the community to really help the community, and a lot of guys aren't doing that. That go to these HBCUs.